A woman was raped in Pakistan, but she's lucky she's Belgian. Her country will defend her. If she were Pakistani, they'd do all they could to end her. I'd trust Daniel Hakikaju in a preschool more than I would Keir Starmer. And if Sharia comes to Britain, you know how much it will harm her. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to This Week in Jihad. We got a lot of jihad, but we have the great David Wood with us. David, how's the world look to you?
These poems are getting creepy, Robert.
Creepy is not the word I expected.
I mean creepy, and yeah. So what was it last time where I mentioned that I'd always assumed that you were working on your poem like all week.
Wait
What's
a
up?
minute. Do I have it open? I must have it open.
What?
I'm hearing.
What are you hearing?
I'm hearing you back with a delay. I don't
Check,
see
check.
it. Are
You
you
mean with
seeing
do you mean an echo or a delay?
a delay? Like I'm hearing back what you said moments ago, as if I'm got the show playing somewhere, and now I'm hearing me too. So I must have it open.
So an echo? Yeah, you've got it open somewhere.
Okay,
You got
sorry
the show
about
open.
that, folks. I am still technically challenged. But
You ain't
anyway,
the
you
only
were
one.
saying,
You ain't the
you
only
were
one.
saying
I was
about the
saying how.
poems. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd always assumed that you were spending like the week on poems, and then all of a sudden you made a poem like last time that was right after I posted something, and then people don't know unless they were following me on Twitter. You basically reworked two of my tweets into a poem, tweets that I just sent out. So it was less than an hour ago. I posted, "This woman is lucky she's Belgian since her country will defend her. If she were Pakistani, she'd be arrested, convicted, and sentenced to life in prison for being gang raped." Because we've heard that over and over and over again. What was the statistic years ago? It was like over half of women in prison in Pakistan are there.
I think it was three quarters, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a while since I've seen it. Or are you
Oh,
frozen?
what? How did this do this?
He's frozen, ladies and gentlemen. And it's the
No, it's
middle of summer.
Do you hear me?
I hear you, but I see you in a perpetual state of.
It's so weird. I don't know what this is, but every time I get an update of any kind, like a some sort of text update or something like this, my camera stops. I don't know what sort of setting that is that's doing that, but I'll just cut out and come back. And this might happen multiple times since I don't know how to troubleshoot this in the middle of a show.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Technical Troubles Wednesday.
You
And
see, the power of Allah. He can't silence them, but he can stop the camera from working for 30 seconds. I'll be right back.
that's it. Anyway, I see people asking me for the poem today. So here it is again. And once that's true, David Wood's tweets are the inspiration for this week's poem. A woman was raped in Pakistan. She's lucky she's Belgian. Her country will defend her. If she were Pakistani, they'd do all they could to end her. I trust Daniel Hakikaju in a preschool more than I would Keir Starmer. And as Sharia comes to Britain, you know how much it will harm her. And that's This Week in Jihad. There's a lot of jihad, though, going on. And I think that we need to begin even while. Oh, here's David now. Ladies and gentlemen, he's back, and he's better than ever. David Wood.
We don't know how long it's going to last because a couple weeks ago I saw that it was a Skype notification that was stopping the camera from working every time, and now I don't know what it is. So anyway, I'm gonna have to troubleshoot after the show. Just know I may disappear or freeze multiple times.
Okay. Does nobody send David any notifications for the next hour? David, last
Meanwhile,
week.
I get 300 notifications from keyboard jihadis. Thanks, Robert.
Yes, that's. You see? Yeah.
Oh,
Anyway. All right, we got. It's a funny thing, David, because last week was, of course, our Keir Starmer edition, speaking about how he had introduced a two-tier policing procedure in Britain such that Muslim rioters were ignored and even favored by the police, while peaceful demonstrators for against mass migration in Britain were very harshly dealt with. And now that's just gotten exponentially worse over the last week. And so we're gonna have to think of something else to call it. But Keir Starmer's on a tear, and he is working very energetically for the Islamization of Britain. And one of the stories that we have is that the British are set to adopt a definition of Islamophobia.
Huh.
Now, a definition.
Wait.
This is a funny thing because this is a word
I kind of
that
like
is
the idea
never
of giving,
defined.
finally giving. I like the idea of finally giving a definition. We're gonna. I mean, it's going to be ridiculous and insane, but at least we'll get a definition because, if you linguistically, you would think it's some irrational fear of Islam, like if you had the kind of fear of Islam that lots of people have of Jews, where everything, oh no, my shelf fell off the wall, a Jew must be behind it or something like that. If you had that level of concern about Islam, where everything that goes wrong, you think, there's a Muslim hiding behind there. There must be a Muslim in my closet. Then I'd say you have an irrational fears. But in actual practice, what we've seen is that any concern about anything that Islam teaches or that any Muslim has ever done is called Islamophobia. If you say, hey, there's a bunch of guys gang raping 12-year-old girls, we need to do something about that, Islamophobia. If you say, hey, that guy just slaughtered a bunch of people while screaming Allahu Akbar, maybe we should look at the Muslim sources to see where he's getting these ideas, Islamophobia. And so that's what we're told. So, I mean, it was just, in order to use the definition as they've used it in the past, and if they want to actually come up with an official definition, they're going to just have to say any criticism of Islam that could potentially give anyone any sort of negative view about the perfect religion of Islam, or that could hurt any Muslim's feelings anywhere ever, is a mental disorder. They're going to have to say something like that. Otherwise, it won't work.
That's basically it. But before I'm about to reveal the definition of Islamophobia that the Labour Party has already adopted and that may well become British law at this point.
Whoa.
But I just, what you were saying about some people seeing Jews everywhere, it reminded me, do you remember that guy, Asghar Bukhari, from a few years back? Okay, he's kind of dropped out of sight. And I think it's because he was quite literally insane. And Asghar Bukhari, I was on some show with him once, and we had a contentious discussion, and then like they always do, he went around beating his chest and saying he had defeated me soundly in a debate. But this guy was really crazy. And he made a series of videos. I certainly hope, I've not checked, but I certainly hope they're still on YouTube, where he said that Mossad had broken into his house and moved his slippers. Not stolen his slippers, but just moved them from where he always puts them there. He knows he puts them in this particular place every night. And so he knows Mossad came in and moved his slippers. And then he made 3 videos of this.
Oh, nice.
Because after people started ridiculing him, he just doubled down and tripled down.
Smart.
I love this guy. I hope, Asghar, wherever you are, I know you're watching tonight, and I just want to tell you, you will always have a place in my heart.
That is funny though.
Your
The
slippers, though, they're not there. You have a place in my heart, but not your slippers.
That is funny because the idea that Mossad is sneaking around moving people's slippers just to bother them reminds me of 2 things. Like, I didn't believe the alien crop circle stories when I was growing up. I was like, wait a minute, you mean some alien flies here from the Andromeda galaxy and he says, hey, I'm going to go make circles in this redneck's wheat field and probe this sheep, right? It's like, come on. Like, that's what you're going to do? You cross the galaxy? Anyway, so...
Yeah. Well, they tried to take me to your leader, but then they ended up with Joe Biden. So
so the idea that Mossad is like that. We're going to go all the way. We're going to send our agents over here, and they're going to infiltrate this guy's house. Then we're going to move his slippers. It's pretty funny.
You see?
But the other thing that was funny was I was locked up with this dude. His name was Huntley, and he was massively obsessive compulsive. Like everything that he had to be, because you can have like books and a TV and you got a Foot Locker and stuff, and everything had to be lined up perfectly on a line. And so what we would do is we'd go move something like an eighth of an inch.
Oh man.
We'd move his Foot Locker a quarter of an inch or something like that every day. And every day he'd come back from the lawn crew where he worked on, who's been in my stuff? The cops have been in my stuff. But it didn't matter. It could be an eighth of an inch, and he would lose his mind when he got back. So anyway, this
Yep.
guy might be a little mental.
A little. I haven't actually seen anything from him in years, so I hope he's okay. But if Britain still has asylums, he's probably in them. After all, that's where they put all the jihadis to start with, so
Mm-hmm.
he'd be right at home. Anyway, the definition of Islamophobia that the British government is seriously considering now says that Islamophobia is rooted in racism and is a type of racism that targets expressions of Muslimness or perceived Muslimness. Now that's a made-up word
What?
as far as I'm concerned.
That's the
What
dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. Could you repeat that entire thing?
Islamophobia is rooted in racism and is a type of racism that targets expressions of Muslimness or perceived Muslimness.
Wait, what race is Islam? Just for the record.
Well, probably because this is Britain, they probably think of it as South Asian Pakistani. And
Well, so
that's the idea. But if you're a white Muslim, then apparently you cannot be a victim of Islamophobia.
yeah, for the record, Robert, do we have any more of a problem if it's a Pakistani dude screaming Allahu Akbar while slaughtering unbelievers in the name of Allah than we do if it's a white British guy screaming Allahu Akbar while slaughtering unbelievers in the name of Allah? Are we like, oh no, the brown guy slaughtering unbelievers in the name of Allah, that's a problem. This white guy over here slaughtering unbelievers in the name of Allah, that's just fine. When we hear, let's say Jake, the Muslim metaphysician, and Daniel Hakikachu, who are these guys are so white they make Queen Elizabeth look like Queen Latifah. But I mean, if these guys are saying, "Hey, we want an Islamic state where Robert Spencer and Brother Rashid and all these guys can be publicly executed," do we say, "Oh, okay, well they're white, so we don't have a problem with that"? But if they were brown guys, then we'd have a problem with that. Is that how we're thinking here, or is our problem just with the really stupid, dangerous, evil, sick, twisted ideas?
I think it's with the ideas, David. I was with those guys, as you know, and I did not say during that whole show, oh, these guys are white, so it's okay if they kill me. That did not even cross my mind. And I thought that they looked a little ludicrous in their jalabas and looked like they were play acting. You know, they reminded me of guys at a Renaissance fair dressed up as if it's 1412. And that's, but they're dressed up like it's 712, so that's okay. But no, it doesn't make any difference to me what their race is whatsoever.
Uh-huh. And we can't leave out the fact that Muhammad was the whitest prophet in history.
Yep.
Muhammad was so white. I mean, that guy made the Brady Bunch look like NWA. Got it all over the sources. Remember the whiteness of his thigh and the whiteness of his armpits and the whiteness of his stomach and the whiteness of his shin. They just go body part by body part talking about how white he is on his milky white flesh when his buddy's smooching him all over his milky white body.
That's it.
Yeah,
So,
there's even that hadith in Bukhari where a messenger from another area shows up and he knows he's supposed to give a message to Muhammad and he doesn't know who Muhammad is. And it's the whole ummah is there is gathered together and the guy says, which one's Muhammad? They say, the white one. That's how they
yeah,
specified that guy, the white one. So anyway,
he
guess
must
what,
have been
ladies and gentlemen?
paler than all the Quraysh.
Yeah, so Muhammad is whiter than white, and we have a real problem with his ideas. You could say he's as white as pot. We still have a problem with his ideas. So it ain't
So,
about race.
the other part of it is it's a type of racism. This is Islamophobia, Britain's Islamophobia definition. type of racism that targets expressions of Muslimness or perceived Muslimness. Now, let me ask you, is it expressions of perceived Muslimness that really get under your skin? Is that why you're doing this for all these years?
No, I couldn't. I couldn't conceivably care about expressions of Muslimness, except when those expressions of Muslimness involve violently subjugating the entire world.
Yep, there you go. And so it seems to me that this definition is patently absurd,
Yeah.
but it could well become law in Britain, and the Labour government of Keir Starmer is already behaving as if the law were in place. This is Starmer, for those of you who may not know,
Doesn't he
and
look like
that
a
is,
freaking Nazi? And
oh
then
yeah, yeah, you can hear him saying,
Starmer sounds like Starmer, something like this.
yeah,
He sounds like
Herr Starmer.
sounds like an SS guy and looks like one too.
The Herr Obergruppenführer Starmer, he would like a few words with you about your Islamophobia. Anyway,
By the way, that definition, I mean, just think about how. So you have let's say you have a terrorist attack, guys screaming Allahu Akbar, and you say, "Oh, look what this Muslim just did." You're going after people based on their expressions of Muslimness,
yeah,
and therefore you are guilty of Islamophobia. And
yep.
it sounds like they will, the direction they're going. It sounds like they'll just lock you up over this. Hey, you hurt that guy's feelings with by criticizing his expression of Muslimness. What was the expression of Muslimness? Slaughtering unbelievers in the name of Allah while screaming Allahu Akbar. How
Yep.
dare you criticize that? Now you got 20 months in prison with the guy, with the jihadi.
So it's already happening, David. This is
Yep.
David Spring. And this is David Spring, who is a 61-year-old Englishman who
Looks like Muhammad.
was who was among the people protesting that got Keir Starmer so angry. And David Spring was chanting the familiar chant in Britain, Allah, Allah, who the F is Allah? And for that,
It's
he has...
it's you got to get the cadence right, Robert. It's Allah, Allah. Who the F is Allah?
Is that right?
That's
Is that what they say?
Yeah, it's Allah,
Okay.
Allah. Who the F is Allah? Right? And it's amazing because uh, normally here's where you have to give credit where credit is due. It's normally the pro-Palestinian crowd that is great at coming up with like chants
Mm.
and slogans and so on. In fact, I mean, me and AP were in Tel Aviv at a conference where like during the Q&A, guy's raising his hand. He's like, how come they're so good at coming up with slogans and we suck so bad? Like, why can't we come up with a good like counter slogan? And they're like trying to figure out, why can't these guys come up with one? Anyway, that particular one where you've got a group of people going through and going, Allah, Allah, who the F is Allah, right? For some reason, that's a bit catchy there, and it's catching on. It looks like they want to crack down on it. Looks like they want to crack down on that because it's, I don't know, it's, I guess it's a racist criticism of an expression of Muslimness. And,
Exactly.
yeah.
So David Spring is now serving 18 months in prison. And if you think about the fact that if you think about the fact that the rape gangs operated for years with impunity because the police were afraid of being called Islamophobic, and they even now they many of them get light sentences, and this poor guy, 61 years old, he is going to be in prison for 18 months because he said, Allah, Allah, who the F is Allah? And then we got Lee Dunn. Whoops, wrong thing. Here we go. This is Lee Dunn. And Lee Dunn is another Englishman.
Looks pretty English.
Yep. Yeah, I don't think you can get more English looking than that. And he is 51 years old, and he has been jailed for Facebook posts. One of his Facebook posts showed a bunch of what the press called Asian men. And they were standing there at the Egremont Crab Fair 2025. I don't know how they were able to stand in this fair that took place in the future, but what do I know? I'm not English. And they said, coming, and Lee Dunn said, coming to a town near you. he shared another picture of a group of Asian, and of course, Asian is the English media euphemism for Pakistani
Pakistani.
Muslims. And so Lee Dunn put up a picture of a bunch of Asian men holding knives in front of Westminster Palace, and with a crying child, a crying white child, says the press report, in a Union flag T-shirt. And this also coming to a town near you. And a bunch of guys, Asian men, once again, getting off a boat on a beach. And he put the caption, "When it's on your turf, then what?" So this is a guy that's against mass migration of Muslims into Britain, as many people in Britain are. And he has now gone to prison for sharing these online memes about it on Facebook. Even though he apologized, David. He did.
Yeah. And like, apologize for what? Like, he's freaked out and he's responding by saying like what an obvious problem this is. And you literally have, keep in mind, want to be clear here, you do have plenty of immigrants who just want a better life and want to get out of whatever crap hole place they came from. Totally understandable. So we're not talking about everyone. You do have people who are specifically coming here because it's their mindset that it's part of them subjugating you and taking over. And they view it as, hey, if we can just get to the UK or France or the US, we can just go around doing whatever we want. No one's going to stop us because they're all scared of us and so on. And they love doing that. But if you pointed out, hey, the way these guys are going, this is the future, then they lock you up. But I mean, we just talked about the problem last time, where when you basically let people know, you let citizens know, the government is against you, in the sense that the government is aiding people who want to subjugate you, and the police are aiding people who want to subjugate you, the courts are aiding people who want to subjugate you. And then you think, okay, well, I still have the last peaceful means I have of dealing with anything is either protesting or posting things on social media. And now the UK government has said, we'll arrest you for protesting and we'll arrest you for posting things online. You have basically taken away any peaceful means of these guys have of dealing with their frustrations over you destroying their country. And there's no way that ends well. And what's crazy, the cycle that they're in now, because you have so many people who have no peaceful, you will have people who just, oh, well, okay, I lost. I've got to go and try to live my life the best I can as I see my country completely destroyed by an evil, sick government supporting an evil, sick ideology. And so you just throw your hands up and, do what you can. You'll have other people who will practice passive resistance and things like that. You'll have other people who react violently. They'll turn to violence as a means of dealing with. And every time one of these guys ends up dealing with his frustrations violently, the government will then use that and say, aha, you see, this is why we have to crack down on ordinary people even more. Because if we don't, it's going to lead to more violence. They'll crack down even more. This is bad. I mean, Britain is like this close to being completely gone.
Yep. And it's getting worse, David. They're coming for us.
Did you hear about this? Look at this dork. Bring an army, loser.
Where is he? I lost him. There he is. That is Mark Rowley. Mark Rowley is the chief of police in London, the London Metropolitan Police. And he has issued a very stern warning. He said, we will throw the full force of the law at people, and whether you're in this country committing crimes or on the streets or committing crimes further afield online, we will come after you.
What's that guy's name?
Mark Rowley.
Hey, Mark Rowley. You treacherous, evil, sadistic scumbag supporting the most obvious false prophet in history in his goal of global conquest over your own people. We've got our fair share of problems here in America, and we have our things that we have to deal with. But when it comes to you running your mouth about extraditing other people from other countries, kiss our American behinds there, sport. Better bring an army. How well did that work out for you last time when a bunch of farmers with pitchforks beat the most powerful army in the world? Good luck with that. Did we? Do we regret saving you from the Nazis? I have to say, no. But you wonder at this point, what was the point of it all? What was the point? What was the
Yes,
point? I have to say, on behalf of Americans everywhere, we do not apologize for dumping your garbage tea into our harbor. We don't.
that's right. I was even up in Boston some years ago and went on the harbor tour and got to dump some of the tea into the harbor. It was a great thing. It's a if you ever up there in
Oh, yeah.
Boston, folks, take that tour. It's well worth it,
That's right. We're
especially now.
Americans. We're Americans. We drink coffee. You think there's a big mug of tea? You think there's a big mug of tea?
I've just
Tea,
got water.
tea is vegan estrogen, everyone.
All right,
Coffee's liquid testosterone. Anyway, let's go.
all right. We have the story now. Back to the violent jihad. We have the story that we were speaking of briefly in connection with your tweet and my poem. This at the beginning of the show. A 28-year-old Belgian national was found bound hand and foot in Islamabad, and it is noteworthy that she says she was subjected to sexual assault for 5 days. A suspect named Tamizuddin has been arrested, but he says that she is mentally ill.
Hmm.
What do you think,
Uh,
David?
oh, I mean, when you said he said, I thought you were about to say he said. No, she really wanted us to gang rape her.
Well, I think maybe he knows the way that you get out in the West, and that is to say you're mentally ill, and all the jihadis are mentally ill. So
Yeah, yeah. And think
maybe
about it,
that's it.
guys. Yeah, think about it, guys. It's going to be one Belgian woman speaking against a number of Muslim men, and she will not have four male Muslim witnesses on her behalf. She'll have a bunch of guys saying, "No, she's a liar and she's crazy." And didn't they like find her like she was like just like on the ground where they dumped her,
Bound hand and foot.
bound hand and foot? Yep. She was crazy. She's so crazy that she bound she bound herself hand and foot and tossed herself on the ground after being horribly gang raped.
Yep, that's how it
And what's crazy,
works.
the Pakistan, the only shot of any punishment in this situation is because it's a foreign country that Pakistan might want to remain on good terms, so they might have to make a show of this. Otherwise, I mean, if this were a Pakistani woman, I mean, she'd be going to prison. She'd be going to
Mm,
prison over this stuff. And so, yeah, the only shot is if Pakistan, for some reason, is trying to keep up good relations with Belgium.
indeed. All right, we have many, many terrible stories out of Africa, as always. In Nigeria, uh, the jihadis stormed a village this past week and they murdered 50 people and then moved on to a Catholic church on Sunday morning in the middle of Mass where they stormed the place and murdered 20 more. Now, David, this took place in Nigeria, and so it's not going to get a whole lot of attention outside of this show in the
Hmm.
West. But imagine what do you think the coverage would be if a Christian militia group stormed a mosque in Nigeria and murdered 20 people, which of course would never happen and should never happen. But hypothetically, if it did, what would we be hearing right now?
It would be international news for the next 6 weeks. And for all future Islamic terrorist attacks, when we point out, hey, this guy just slaughtered a bunch of people in the name of Allah, it would be brought up as what? Everyone has their radicals. Just look at that one time those Nigerians, Christians, attacked a mosque. So you
Indeed.
see, you can't complain about Islam. There's never a situation where you can ever complain about Islam's calls for global conquest and child marriage and killing apostates and killing blasphemers and so on. There's never a situation where you're allowed to say anything about it.
That's right. After all, you are criticizing perceived Muslimness. And so watch out. Mark Rowley's going to be knocking on your door at 4 a.m.
Better bring an army, Mark.
All right, we got Democratic Republic of the Congo.
The British are coming.
That's right. Yeah, they are. And they're not coming for the people doing this. They're coming for us because we talk about it. But in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, we got the Allied Democratic Forces, which is a jihad group, an ISIS, Islamic State group, and they stormed a village themselves, killed 30 Christians there. And so it's a very hot jihad on Christians in Africa, with the storming of a church, murder of 20 people in Nigeria, Christian village, 30 people in Democratic Republic of the Congo. And what's the end game, David? What are they trying to do?
Trying to keep moving forward, pushing Islam all the way through Africa.
Because the Quran says, fight them until persecution is no more and religion is all for Allah. So these Christians in Africa, they were not doing anything, but their religion was all for Allah. Not all for Allah. Mm-hmm. And so they had to be killed. All right. Hey, interesting twist. I don't think we talked about this last week, but correct me if I'm wrong. But we did talk about the jihad plot at the Taylor Swift concert in Vienna. Actually, 3 Taylor Swift concerts.
Yeah, they canceled it.
Yeah, and there was a detail that came out, I believe, after the show last week, if I recall correctly, that the reason why they had to cancel these concerts was because the security guy was in league with the jihadis. A friend of the jihad plotters who were arrested was in charge of security, and he was hiring security guards. So imagine what would have happened if this had gone forward and the security guards are actually jihadis.
Mm-hmm.
And
this is it's kind of inevitable. In fact, it's surprising that you haven't had something that well planned and organized before, because you've had a bunch of very organized attacks, but everyone wants to bend over so far backwards to show that they're not Islamophobic. That, I mean, imagine you could have Osama bin Laden show up and say, "Hey, I'd like to work security at your place." You'd have to show how not Islamophobic you are by hiring him and say, "Yes, and you pick all the security guards for this concert of infidels that you want." You'd have to. So it's actually pretty surprising that they haven't pulled that off before.
Yeah, and I thought it was a remarkably clever idea, and it shows some real ingenuity, some real thought. And imagine if these guys, instead of trying to sow death and destruction everywhere, actually turned their intelligence to positive good. What the world would be a very different place, but that's not happening. As a matter of fact, this is a guy out of New Jersey.
Yeah, what a dork.
Ismail Hamdi, and he was this week talking about Haniya, his namesake, Ismail Haniya, saying he was a good man, a great leader, and a martyr. And he said that fighting and getting killed for the sake of Allah is the best thing possible. I would much rather die a martyr than die on my couch watching television. It's a beautiful thing to die a martyr. Now, David, when I put this up at jihadwatch.org, I said this is direct incitement to violence.
Yeah.
Now, why is that? Because people don't realize that. They think, oh, he's talking about dying a martyr. That means you're giving everything for your faith. But this means something quite different, does it not?
Yeah, in Islam, I mean, Muhammad had all these extra things for all these Muslims who would be like, "Oh, but I'm sick. Why can I be a martyr too?" And so you had all these, "Oh yeah, you could be a martyr too," and stuff. But in general, when they're talking about martyrdom, they're talking about people who go out and wage war for Allah and die in the process. That's their normal concept, and that's the concept that this guy's talking about. He's not talking about. I mean, he specifically says you want that. You don't want to die on your couch, right? Mm-hmm. So we're not talking about any secondary meanings of martyrdom here. We know what he's talking about. He's specifically talking about the wounds on your body. So he's talking about people who go out and fight and then die in battle. And there's all the stuff he's saying, it's like people are like, ugh, that's sick. The wounds and the blood smell better than that's a direct quote from Muhammad. right?
Yes.
So we're like, what? I don't want to be sniffing someone's wounds. What kind of sick, nasty, disgusting? Ooh, smell this gash in my side here. Smell this gash where they hacked my leg off, right? I don't know. No one wants to hear that, right? But they also know the houris are super attracted to it. Like, ooh, look at those big wounds on him. They smell so good, right? Like, what a creepy, sick, disgusting religion this is. But I mean, think about this. This guy's in New Jersey.
Hmm.
This guy's in New Jersey preaching this. He's preaching about martyrdom and the glories of martyrdom and how you don't want to die. What? As a regular person who just works and does his job and comes home and watches TV, you don't want to die like that. You don't want to die in a normal fashion. You want to die while slaughtering unbelievers in the name of Allah. When I saw that, I tweeted it out and I said, just remember, behind every 19-year-old who goes out and blows himself up, slaughtering unbelievers in the name of Allah, behind every one of those guys, there's the imam or the sheikh or the dawah guy who is telling him how great it is to be a martyr. And so
Hmm.
it's just amazing because you'll have this guy preaching, and he's preaching to a mosque of people, and it's being put online, and then people are sitting there watching it. Wow, martyrdom. Do I want to spend my life just sitting around doing nothing, working my job, raising a family, or do I want to go and obey Allah and be a martyr and have my glorious musk smelling wounds in paradise? Yeah, I want that. I want that. And then they go out and kill people. Meanwhile, this guy's at home safely preaching in New Jersey.
Yep. And I remember also there are hadiths where Muhammad warns that if you don't do this and that he wants, you will not smell paradise. And so paradise is apparently this incredibly fragrant place with
Yeah,
the
with all those jihadis, I bet it smells great.
with all their wounds.
Yeah, and I mean, think about this. I mean, you had Muhammad, and he would supposedly have sex with all 9 of his wives in one evening, and only take one bath. So I mean, and that's nothing compared to Islamic paradise, where you're banging 100 virgins a day and so on, and you're blessed with a penis that never goes limp and so on. And yeah, you're going to need some miraculous musk powers of Allah. Otherwise, that place is going to smell really, really terrible.
Oh yeah. All right, a story out of Germany that's kind of a sign of the times, and this was in Mitte, and around 2:15 a.m. some 3 young men, as they were identified, they robbed and beat up a 20-year-old man whom they came upon, and the 3 young men were apparently Muslims because they objected to this guy who was German, non-Muslim, drinking beer. And I thought, that's interesting. They beat him up and they robbed him after reprimanding him for drinking beer. And what's significant about that is I remember years ago, here's another one of these things, David, where the whole thing is changing now. It used to be the Islamic apologists in the West would say, Sharia has nothing to do with non-Muslims. They don't
Hmm.
have to worry about it. We just want to have our private law. But it's
Yeah,
never enforced on non-Muslims. Well,
yeah.
here it is.
We knew that was a lie because we knew Islamic history. But
Yep.
yeah, you can't. Whatever the Muslim community who's trying to enforce Sharia tells stupid Western politicians and Western journalists, that's what they'll go with. And it doesn't matter how much we know it's a lie. You just have to you warn them. You go ahead and warn them, and then of course they inevitably do not listen. And then 100% of the time we're proven completely correct 10 years later.
Yep. And so there it is again. All right, this is Iman Khalif, the famous boxer from Algeria, and he just won the women's boxing championship in the Olympics. But he has been identified medically as a male, and he says he says he's female, but he was also carried on the shoulders of his coach as he went off the field and went out of the boxing ring in victory. And many people pointed out that no Algerian man would carry an Algerian woman on his shoulders. And so there's been a lot of controversy over this guy because people say, no, no, this is a real woman. No, no, he's really a man. And a lot of controversy over his competing in Olympic women's boxing. But that's not why I'm bringing him up here. Reason why I'm bringing him up here is because the president of the Algerian Olympic Committee, Yassine Arab, has said the Zionist lobby wants to break Khalif's spirit, but she is strong. They don't want to see an Arab or Muslim woman succeed in boxing. So, as far as Yassine Arab is concerned, the head of the Algerian Olympic Committee, the whole controversy over Imam Khalif winning women's boxing matches is because of the Zionists. It's the Jews' fault. Is there anything
Yeah.
in Islam that might explain that?
Um, I mean, it's. I mean, you do have that, and we've seen that all along. That Jews are behind everything, and Jews are conspiring. There are Jewish conspiracies behind everything, but I mean, this we were just talking about this earlier, where if Islamophobia meant something like you were actually delusional and you think that anytime something goes wrong, there's a Muslim behind it, even if there's no evidence whatsoever that there's a Muslim behind it, then you could say it's an actual mental disorder or something like that. But that's what we see with Jews. We don't see that with Muslims. We see that with Jews, that every time something happens that you don't like or something doesn't go your way, then it's there are Jews behind it. But I mean, I haven't heard of. I'm sure there are Jews who've complained about this, but that's not where the ruckus is coming from. It's from a bunch of Westerners who keep getting fed up that you have. Mainly, the concern was that it's already happened with race runners and swimmers and so on in places like the U.S., where you have someone who is basically a third-rate runner or swimmer, and then all of a sudden transitions and still has penis and testicles, and they just say, well, he says he's a woman now, so let him compete against the women, and all of a sudden becomes the greatest female swimmer in the country, like overnight. And so people are fed up about that, and so they hear about this Algerian boxer, and then they go after. But what in the name of common sense does that have to do with Jews or
Indeed.
Israel? Absolutely nothing. And then this is kind of a different situation because it's different from being trans. This is not a person who grew up as a man and then decided at 18 or something like that, hey, I want to be a woman now and go compete with the ladies. This is the intersex area where, as far as I don't know the latest updates, but they were saying XY chromosome, but born as a woman. So this is, I mean, in other words, born with a vagina. So they said girl, even though XY chromosome and testosterone, which is basically equivalent of, taking massive amounts of performance enhancing drugs your entire life. If you have testosterone and women and the people you're competing against don't. But anyway, I don't know the details. So, but it is kind of a different situation. But the point is, in that entire argument, so the argument goes, hey, you shouldn't have trans men competing. I mean, trans women competing against biological women, and then but not a trans. It's a intersex XY thing, but with testosterone. But taking the testosterone suppressors, then you don't have the testosterone, even though you developed with that, and so you're just your body is already changed accordingly, and that's why you're able to just beat the crap out of these women. You had the one who just stopped the fight at the beginning and said, that's the hardest I've ever been hit in my life. I've never been hit like that in my life. And so, but anyway, the point is, so you have this discussion and this back and forth. At what point is Mossad behind this? like what level of insanity? If you want to say someone's wrong, say someone's wrong. But the idea that you'd go, oh man, look at this big debate we're having now, and everyone's going after our boxer online, harassing our boxer. You know who's behind this? Netanyahu.
Yep.
Netanyahu.
That's it. The
He's doing
Jews,
it.
see, probably Yassine Arab is used to thinking that the worst people are the Jews. And that's what the Quran says, that they're the worst enemies of the Muslims. So if there's some bad thing that happens, some big bad controversy that he doesn't want, it must be the Jews.
And it goes right back. I mean, because which is that's how those things ended up in the Quran. That Muhammad, according to the traditional biographies, Muhammad spent the first 12 years in Mecca preaching, saying the Jews, they know about me. I'm in their Torah. They know me. As soon as they see me, they will go, "Oh, we've been waiting for you, the Arab prophet with the giant mole on his back that we've all been waiting for." He told people that in Mecca for 12 years, put them up as the sources, the authorities on this. And by golly, if we ever run into a bunch of Jewish tribes, they're going to say, "Wow, we've been waiting for you." So for 12 years, he builds up the Jews as these these religious authorities on who is and who isn't a prophet. Then he gets there and they basically are ready to laugh him out of the city.
Mm.
You think you're a prophet, you giant moron? Which, according to Muhammad, he's in all their books. It's obvious to them, and they all know it. So when they deny it, he has to accuse them of lying, right? But guess what? If they're lying, if Jews as one giant community are lying about him being a prophet when they know he is a prophet, that means they're just evil. They're evil, and they're there doing the work of Satan to undermine a true prophet. And then Muhammad concludes, well, this is just how the Jews are. Jews are like this. Jews oppose. Jews attempt to destroy the true prophets, and that just means they're evil, and they're behind everything, sabotaging people from believing me. And so, fast forward 1400 years. Oh, they're complaining. Someone's complaining about our boxer. Must be those Jews again. We're onto them.
That's it.
Welcome
All right,
Islam.
I got a good one here. This is Abu Najm Fernando bin Il Iskandar. And Abu Najm is apparently a convert to Islam, but he says he's an indigenous Muslim. And he is an Islamic scholar in the United States. And he just weighed in on the situation in Bangladesh, where, as we discussed last week, Hindus have been subjected to wholesale persecution, and Muslims have been burning down, vandalizing temples, burning down the homes of Hindus, driving them out of various areas, burning down businesses that Hindus own. And Abu Najm Fernando bin Il Iskandar, he said, "I take great solace." He actually tweeted this. He put this on X or Twitter. "I take great solace in the fact that 3 of 4 schools of jurisprudence for Ahl as-Sunnah, that is the people of the Sunnah or Sunni Muslims, say that Hindus should only have 2 options. 1, the sword, or 2, accept Islam. Hindus should be grateful that they're dealing with Hanafis and not Malikis, Shafi'is, or Hanbalis. Those are the schools of Islamic jurisprudence, the primary ones in Sunni Islam." And he's saying that the Bangladeshi Hindus are lucky that they are dealing with Muslims of the school that is more lenient toward the Hindus. And they should be made to convert or be killed.
Matter of fact, Robert, that's exactly, we've talked about this repeatedly before, that we'll see someone doing horrible things, and we're always thinking, well, this horrible thing that this mob is doing or that this government's doing, still better than what Islam actually teaches. I mean, when you hear a Muslim Dawah guy say, hey, if my daughter gets her first period when she's 9, then I would tell her you was ready to be married. As revolting and disgusting as that is, we all recoil and go, ugh, you're talking about sending your 9-year-old daughter to get banged by your Dawah buddy? That's disgusting, right? You should be in jail. You should be in prison for that. As disgusting as we think that is, it's better than where you have the Quran says you absolutely do not have to wait for puberty, and Muhammad didn't with Aisha, right? So it's as revolting as this is, it's actually better than what Islam teaches. But that's exactly what I was thinking of. Oh, they're going around and they're killing some Hindus and so on and stealing their stuff, but that guy's right. Under actual Islam, how would you treat? It's different for Jews and Christians. We're people of the book. We have an extra option. And you have had, this is in your book, I think this is in your book, History of Jihad, that there were Muslim rulers who said that Hindus can be given the dhimmi status, which you wouldn't get that impression from the Quran because they would be regarded as polytheists. But according to actual Islam, what option should Hindus be given in a country that is dominated by Islam? You'd have to say the only option they'd be given is convert, die, or run as fast as you can to get away from these guys. So, I mean, this guy's right. It's like you should be grateful that you don't have people who are more Islamic, more authentically Islamic than the guys you're dealing with. And
I
it's
had
just a
to. I
just a
couldn't let
situation
this
over again.
comment go by.
Yeah.
Did his 6-year-old wife braid his hair? Uh,
Yeah.
anyway,
It's
I
like,
don't
hey,
know.
it's like, can I braid your hair like I braid mine? Yeah, sure.
I got to tell you, Abu Najm, I know you're watching tonight, and I
You
do want to
sicko.
assure you I don't know if you have a 6-year-old wife or not. But I did want to note what liars these guys are. Abu
You think?
Najm, let me get his name again, his full name here. Uh, Abu Najm Fernando bin Il Iskandar. He actually wrote me at Jihad Watch when I put
Nice.
up this story, and he accused me of lying. And he said that I should retract the lie and take down the article. And so I thought this is kind of remarkable because he's saying I'm lying, and yet this is an article. The article I put up was from Op India, the Indian site, and they screenshotted his tweets. And so I said, did somebody forge tweets in your name? Are you? If so, sure, I'll take it down. But if this is what you really wrote, then you're in trouble. If you're going to say I'm lying because you're repeating just classic Islamic theology, and so if you're going to say that's a lie now, you might get in trouble with
Ooh.
some other people.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. So, yo,
some reason he didn't write back after that.
yeah. So, guys, you follow that? So, this guy tweeted all this creepy stuff that is straight out of his, that he is completely correct on from an Islamic perspective, namely Hindus, even when they're being persecuted from an Islamic perspective, even when Hindus are being persecuted, it's better than you would get if people were actually carrying out the commands of Allah, because you would just be given the option: convert now, recite the Shahada, or we're killing you all. That's the options you would be given. So he points out, no, it's actually better. But then when Robert reports this, the guy says, no, I didn't say that. How dare you? How dare you? This is all. No, I didn't say this. Robert said, wait, did you send these tweets or not? But I mean, think about the the situation Robert put him in. Oh, are you saying all this stuff is false? Because if so, if he says no, this isn't true, what are you saying? The Quran is wrong? That you saying that the Hadith are wrong? You saying that the three schools that you think would be more stringent in the application of Islam, you don't think they would be? What are you saying here? And
Yeah.
so put him in the awkward position of wanting to say he didn't say these things, but if he denounces them, then he'd be denouncing Islam. And Robert pointed out that might get him in trouble with some of his jihad buddies.
Indeed. And so he dropped the matter apparently. But Abu Najm, look, if you want to talk about it some more, be happy to hear from you. And if you have a case, I will certainly take it down. Jihad Watch is a scrupulously accurate site, and so if you really have a case, I'm happy to take it down. But I really don't think you do. Anyway, we have a few other useful idiots this week. Uh, Stupid infidels, they're called, is the term of art. This is Tim Walz, who is the vice presidential candidate for the Democratic Party. And this is Tim Walz. He was a speaker at the CARE Minnesota Islamophobia, Countering Islamophobia Conference. And there's Jailani Hussein of the Council on American Islamic Relations there to Waltz's right. And to Waltz's left is Hatem Bazian, who is a professor of Islamophobia at the University of California, Berkeley. Yes, he
Did you
is.
say that correctly? There's now
Huh? What do you
you,
mean, Hatem? Hatem Bazian?
no, I'm saying you can actually be a professor of Islamophobia now.
Yeah, he is a professor of Islamophobia.
So I got my PhD, and hey, we want to go to that program. I want my PhD in Islamophobia.
And that's Khalid Beydoun over on the far left, or the far right of the picture.
Oh, come on, they're all far left, Robert.
Yes. That guy, that's that guy, I forget his name. But now I recognize him. The guy between Bazian and Khalid Beydoun is an American guy, another professor of Islamophobia. and I've had some dealings with him, but shoot, I forget his name. Anyway, these people all want people to actually believe that Islamophobia is a real thing. Now, Tim Waltz, and of course it was invented in order to intimidate people like us into being afraid to speak about jihad violence. But I just wanted to
Didn't work.
point out, Tim Waltz, not on us. It works on
Not
far
on
too
us.
many others.
Worked on 90% of people.
Yes, he appeared at this Countering Islamophobia conference, and he's also many times he has hosted a cleric named Assad Zaman. There's Assad, who praised the October 7th attacks. And he's pals with Tim Waltz. And the thing is, I wanted to point out that Tim Waltz is a leftist politician, governor of Minnesota. Now he's vice presidential candidate. And so he knew there would be no political fallout from appearing at CARE's his conference with all these Islamophobia professors. And he knew that he could be friends with Assad Zaman of the Muslim American Society of Minnesota, who praised October 7th. There'd be no fallout. But if he appeared on this show, for example, or on one of your shows, there would be, what do you think would be the reaction?
Racist, bigot, all this stuff. You're aligning with evil, sick, twisted people, and so on. You should just be aligning with people who praise the October 7th attack, since they're the only nice, reasonable people. Anyone who opposes it is an Islamophobe. So how dare you associate with Islamophobes? Something like that.
That's it. I think you're absolutely right. This is something that there's just no doubt about it, that he could not and would not talk to us. He would not talk to anybody else who is critical of Islam in the slightest degree. That's absolutely out of the picture for any politician, even ones who oppose Tim Waltz. But they know that there's no problem appearing at CARE events and things of that nature. All right, I got another big one here I didn't want to leave out before we go. This is Muhammad Salim out of Pakistan, David. Muhammad Salim was arrested this week because, as it turned out, Muhammad Salim was caught in a graveyard where he had dug up a corpse and was having sexual relations with the corpse. Now, David, this is a bizarre and unpleasant story, but it has everything to do with Islam, and that's why I brought it up in this connection, because we're talking about jihad. Jihad is a tenet of Islam. And what else do we hear about this particular situation in Islamic texts?
Well, not sure which creepy text you're referring to, but you do have the hadith in Kanz al-Umal where a guy's worried that his relative is not going to go to paradise after she died, and therefore Muhammad says, "Don't worry about it. I'll go lay with her," and then goes down into her grave with her. And I've heard from people who understand the language that the language is basically ambiguous. Like in English, if you say "I slept with her," that could mean that you just slept with her, like you just went to sleep beside her, but could also be in a sexual connotation that you had sex with her and so on. So I've heard that it's ambiguous, but I guess the creepy idea is that Muhammad thought, oh, don't worry, if I go down into her grave and bang her, then she'll be one of my wives in paradise, and that way she'll go to paradise. Anyway, some sort of creepy thing like that. Yeah. Is that what you were thinking of?
Yeah, definitely. There are several authorities. Mishkat al-Masabi, which is another hadith collection, has Anas saying, "I was present when the daughter of Allah's messenger was being buried. He, that is Allah's messenger, Muhammad, was sitting beside the grave, and I saw his eyes shedding tears. He then asked, 'Is there any of you who did not have sexual intercourse last night?' Abu Talha replied that he had not. So he told him to go down into her grave, and he did so." That's Mishkat al-Masabi of 1715. And that's attributed actually in Mishkat Masabi to Bukhari, although it's not in the Bukhari collection that's readily available. In any case, that does seem to give Muhammad sanction to this kind of behavior. Abd al Hamid Ash-Sharawani, uh, publishing a book of Islamic law in Egypt in 1983, he said there is no need to rewash a dead woman if her husband has sex with her after she dies. He's taking for granted that that's something that's acceptable on Islamic grounds. And I put up
Hmm.
at Jihad Watch in this story a lot of other examples of Islamic authorities saying this is something that's completely acceptable. And so, if people want to dispute that, that's fine. I'm glad that you think that's abhorrent, but there are unfortunately these Islamic texts that justify it. And just saying it's abhorrent or that you don't do it as a Muslim or whatever, that doesn't actually change that fact. So, David, we come to the end of another glorious week of This Week in Jihad. I'll be watching your tweets at 7:55 next week to get a poem. And anyway, till then, there's going to be more jihad, so keep your head down, keep alert, look all around you, practice, what do they call it, situational awareness, and above all, pray, hope, and don't worry.